What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in the video. Today I'm going to show you the LTS USAPL Midwest Regionals first place overall team case studies. So I want to include a topic to these videos. I might make this like a webinar series, I'm not sure yet. But I want to showcase sort of the team, the lifters, the success, but also I want to sort of include educational topics that maybe you guys can learn something from as well. So it's mutually beneficial and we all have a good time. So what I'm going to do with this video here is I'm going to go over the topic of fitness versus preparedness. I'm going to relate it back to some regionals performances and show some examples as well. So on the topic of fitness versus preparedness, I'll showcase lifters who utilized Eastern periodization methods in which I intentionally spike their fitness or increase it very drastically going into the meet at the expense of some preparedness. I won't showcase any Western periodization examples. So on the right side of the screen there, I basically asked what people want me to go over on Instagram, and a majority picked programming, so that's what I'm going to do. Overall, the final team stats were 16 total LTS lifters. The average squat PR was 10.25 kilos or 22 pounds. Bench 4.8 or 10.5. Deadlift was 8.8 or 20. So the average total PR was 23.85 keys or 52 pounds. 4 first place finishes, 3 second place, 3 third place, second best overall female lifter, Erica. I'm happy with them, I think, but that's for you guys to judge. Before showing some examples here, let's talk about the topic of fitness versus preparedness, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are like, what the hell am I even talking about with that? So what is fitness? So I define fitness in the context of powerlifting as the ability to exert higher potential force. So in simpler terms, how strong you are or how potentially strong you are. And then I define preparedness in the context of powerlifting as the ability to optimally perform the given movement with the highest level of fitness you have. So in simpler terms, how good you are at the movement. So fitness is how potentially strong you are, and preparedness is how good you are specifically at using that strength within a specific movement. Within powerlifting, obviously it's squat, bench, and deadlift. So why are these two things so important? Because fitness and preparedness are what comprises strength. So fitness does not equal strength, and preparedness does not equal strength. Fitness plus preparedness equals strength. This is a topic that I see a lot of people misunderstand. So a lot of people we can relate this back to like everyday examples. So to say you took someone who's like super genetically gifted, works a manual labor job, they're just naturally really strong, right? If you took them and you threw them onto a bench press, for example, the strength might be really high because their fitness is high, but because preparedness is low because they don't bench, right? They won't be able to actually have a higher strength or a higher strength than what they could have. The same for the opposite is true, where like take someone who like they bench all the time, they squat all the time, they deadlift all the time, but they're just not strong in the sense of fitness, but they're really good at the movements. It also won't correlate into strength. So again, why are these two things important? Because they comprise strength. So these are the examples that I just said. So if you're strong but have high fitness, but you aren't good at the competition-specific movement, your strength will be lower. If you're good at the comp-specific movements, your preparedness is high, but your fitness is low, your strength will also be lower. So something people misunderstand associated with the topic. So the most commonly misunderstood fact about this whole topic is people think that these two are not separate from one another, or they think that they're the same. So the thought is that if your fitness is high, then your preparedness also has to be high, or if your fitness is low, preparedness also has to be low. This is not the case. So your potential ability to exert force can be high. So again, the example I just mentioned, your fitness can be really high, but your skill can be low. And your skill can be high and your fitness can be low. And this can happen at any given time for any given reason. I mean, it could be, neuromuscular fatigue, lack of motor pattern development, lack of just hypertrophy in general. Like you don't have the muscle mass to have the ability to do certain things involving fitness or preparedness. Point with this is, fitness and preparedness are what comprise strength. Strength is volatile, it moves up and down over time, but within that strength volatility is a fitness and preparedness sort of combination, more or less, right? So the final point before showing some examples, so a phenomenon never talked about with this is that generally higher intensity will increase preparedness. So given higher intensity lifts are going to be more specific to a max attempt, which is around what you want to do in the competition. This will provide a unique ability to increase efficiency on the specific motor pattern and will allow for more practice. More practice generally equals more preparedness. So example, an RPE 10 single will generally help increase preparedness more than anything else. However, obviously, there's a tax associated with doing something like this. So, given this point, the question then becomes, at what point is the tax associated with a higher intensity lift worth the opportunity cost in terms of the benefit it provides compared to the tax that it incurs? So that RPE10 lift might help you practice a true max, but what if it fatigues you for a week and you're not able to train optimally within that time period because of that fatigue that's associated with the RPE10 lift? In that instance, it will most likely be not beneficial. So a lot of you guys know, a lot of people that are watching this video probably know that you probably shouldn't RPE 10 a lift every time. But this is the specific reason why, right? Because theoretically, there is benefits to an RPE 10 lift. But a lot of the times, a majority, and there's arguments of universally, the benefits aren't worth the cost associated with it. So, questions to think about, and what I'll try to answer in this video here. So, will the tax associated with an RPE 9 lift be worth the opportunity cost or the benefit it provides? Or what about an RPE 8 lift? Or what about an RPE 7 or RPE 6? Or what volume, sets, reps, intensities are going to provide the most benefit while incurring the least amount of tax? What intensity and volume is going to provide the best return of fitness and preparedness? How much does the person need to be prepared versus need to increase potential strength? These are the questions I ask myself when programming for my lifters, and these are the problems that I solve on a daily basis to prescribe the most efficient stress to all of my lifters. So with that being said here, let's go over some of the examples I'm going to provide in this video. I'm going to provide Erica. She won second best overall lifter at Central Midwest Regionals. Her 200 kilo or 440 third attempt deadlift at 166 pounds body weight. Rob Witzlib, his 240 or 530 pound squat with Eastern periodization methods only touching 435 pounds going in. Les Hunt, 578 pound squat PR 2 months after doing PA Nationals. Michael Modoff, 260 kilo, 573 squat at around 90 kilos body weight. No singles for the whole block. And he was fighting for a national qualifying spot. And then Jack Kluge, 235 kilos, 518 pound squat, while only touching 210 kilos or 463 pounds going in. So let's get right into these examples now. Alrighty, so this is going to be the format of the lifter examples I'm going to give you. On the left side of the screen, I'm going to have the video of the lifter. We're going to basically be going over all the top sets and then all the attempts at the meet. Then on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm going to have some data points for you. So let's go over it from top to bottom, left to right here. So top left, name. The right, this is going to be their schedule for the block going into the meet. Each day, SBD, and then the lower the number signifies the importance of the day. So, 1 is a primary day, 2 is a secondary, 3, 4, so on. So for example, Saturday, squat 1, bench 4, deadlift 2. That's primary squat, secondary deadlift, secondary bench. Tertiary, whatever you want to call it. Thursday is a primary bench, primary deadlift. Tuesday, secondary squat, secondary bench, etc., etc. I'm going to show you guys the format of every lifter's block with that table there. I'm going to have fun notes for each one. So for example, this block length for her was 5 weeks going into the meet. Meet day is on week 5, day 1. So her meet day is on Saturday, and this was week 1, day 1. Top sets for all lifts. I'm going to have the lift there. Each week going into the meet, what we're going to do here with this is we're going to fill this out as we go. I'm going to start from week 1, go all the way down to the last week, and then we're going to play the attempts at the meet. And then we're going to fill out the load, the actual RPE, and then the reps per week. I think this is a great data point for you guys to see. On the bottom here, I'm going to have some discussion topics as well. Just some fun things to talk about. Maybe I'll ad-lib that more or less here. But I realize that overall it's slightly limited in nature. So like I'm not showing you, all their sets, all their reps, everything. One, it would drag on too long. 2, I could just talk for hours, and I'm sure you guys don't want me to talk for hours. And 3, like there is an idea here that, I do want to keep some of the stuff that I'm doing with my lifters, not secretive, but like to myself for now. And then, from here, if you have any questions, I can basically answer them in the comment section below. But I would say, based off these periodization models, like, we're going to go over all the top sets on the primary days. And I would say the top sets on the primary days probably matter, for every lift, they probably matter less than all the work around it. But the top sets are going to be the most accurate data point on where strength is and where it's going. So let's start this right off here. Let's go quick here. So week 1, day 1 for deadlift for her, which is Thursday. The block starts on Saturday, but this is Thursday. She has 172.5. So we're gonna put that in on load here, which is 380 pounds. And we're gonna let's just take a look how this week 1 deadlift 1 goes. So she rated this as a 6. I'm going to be conservative here and rate it a 6.5. Now, reps per week. This is something you won't be able to see in the video, but I have it all written down. The reps per week for Erica on deadlift here was 13. She did 13 total reps per week from the Thursday day and the Saturday secondary day. So this is a great starting point. From a coaching perspective, this is exactly what I wanted. She's really, really, really good at this, basically nailing RPs. And, you know, again, from a coaching perspective, this is going to be really, really easy to overload. So also something to keep in mind before I forget. The actual RP that we're going to list here, this is not the prescribed RP. I'm not really going to talk about what I prescribed. I'm just going to use what the actual RP was of the lift, and then we can analyze it as a factual data point. So that was week 1. Let's go to week 2. Week 2, stop, 185 here. So 185 is 407. This is a 12.5 kilo jump, but notice on the sets and reps, this is 1 rep less, so it went from top double to top single. And she rated this. Curious what you guys would rate this. She rated this as a 7. Or actually, she rated this as a 6.5. I rated it as a 7. We're going to put 7 down there to be conservative. The reps per week, again, were 13. Now, obviously, there's some deviation or volatility in reps per set, intensity, but the total reps per the week is exactly the same. So I'm going to analyze with these mechanics here really, really quick because I know some of you guys wanted me to analyze mechanics. The conventional deadlift style here it's somewhat unique but becoming a lot more common. So we have a intentionally rounded back, shoulder width stance, normal with the conventional. And then, but the big thing with this deadlift, and this is something that something like what Audrey Elizabeth does, I don't know if you're familiar with her, when she was conventionaling, is she gets a big pop off the floor, and then that top point is sort of hard. So the actual mechanics of this deadlift is, 1, generate as much power or force, more specifically, off the floor as you can to create momentum when it gets to around the shin and knee area. And then you take that momentum that you generated from the ground and you actually use it to unravel the back or lock out at the top. So that's basically what happens here. And that's why that top looks slow. But the thing is as long as she's able to lift the load at the bottom at a certain speed, the top always locks or unravels very specifically. So this is a very stressful deadlift in my opinion. You're going from a rounded back to a straight back. The bar is traveling a really long distance, right? It's just the load's high, right? But anyway, aside from the little quick biomechanics analysis, physiologically, this is a stressful lift, and that's why these reps are at 13 a week. She's incurring a lot of stress, and even with this RPE7 lift, she's incurring a lot of stress. So, with that being said, the other thing to note here is she's going from 172.5 on week 1 to 185. So, in terms of a data point, if week 1 was here in terms of strength, week 2 is now here. So, very good uptrend here, very good start. She's 2.5 weeks out at this point. Now, week 3, the load here is 187.5 or 413. Let us see how it goes. Oh. And my favorite thing about this lift, it's not the best lift, but my favorite thing about the lift is the walk away. Look how she I think she says the F word or damn it at the top too. Damn it. So anyway, this is a very interesting predicament to be in from a coaching perspective. She rated this as an RP7 minus the lockout at the top. She told me that the gym was approximately 90 degrees, and the reason why she lost her grip was because it was too hot. And actually, there was more than just a grip loss. There was actually a big old hand rip. So, from a coaching perspective, this is actually a really tough predicament to be in because you need to make sure, this is her last heavy deadlift going into the meet. This is 9 days out. If this is what I would say, if she's wrong about it being a fluke, this is a disaster situation to be in because now you're going into the meet failing at the top with 187.5. There's almost no recovering. I mean, you can try to do some grip work going in, but there's just not enough time. This is where coaching comes in too, where I've been working with her for about a year now, and she's never failed to lift on grip. This is actually the first time she's ever failed to lift on grip, and there was that hand rip as well. So, from a coaching perspective, I'm looking at this like, if this is a fluke, we're in a great spot. But if it's not a fluke, we're in a horrible spot. The data points suggest that it was 100% a fluke, but you have to be cautious in terms of attempt selection, right? So with that being said, aside from that little hand or grip loss, hand rip, whatever you want to call it, she rated this as a 7. And I would agree. It's hard to tell again, but let's just put a 7 in there. The reps per week were 9. Now, like I said, this is 9 days out. This is Thursday. She competes on Saturday. So 1, 2, which is this day, the following week. She is 7 days out here. So what actually happens on week 4 is this primary deadlift day is actually removed. Why? Because if she did do this day, she'd be doing it 2 days out. Now, what I do oftentimes is I move this deadlift earlier into the week, and I regulate it a lot, like something like even lower than a week 1. But for this given situation, I had a reason for not doing that, which I'll get into in a second, in which the average reps per week, 1 week out, was 4, right? So now, here we are. This is the last deadlift going to the meet. We're on to meet week here. The opener that we decided after a long talk about that we don't even need to get to was 177.5. So notice her week 1 single was 172.5, her week 2 was 185, or week 1 double was 172. So here we go. This is 177.5 opener at the meet here. So when I was in the audience here, I was filming this. I was Article 14 to oblivion. When I was filming this, I knew we nailed the super compensation peak. This is an RP6. This is fat. This is like way faster than any of her 172 was, and way faster than her 185 was. Obviously, it's 7.5 kilos lower. So from here, it's the meet. We'll put 1 is 177.5 or 390. Attempt 2, we jump 12.5 keys to 190. So 190 is 420, and then this moves again pretty perfectly. The bit from a coaching perspective, again, just a mechanics analysis, the big thing I'm looking at is not the speed off the floor. I'm expecting it to be fast off the floor entirely for these loads. I'm looking at the top, and remember how I was just talking about it's always slow at the top. I'm analyzing right there, and right there, that slow point at the top is actually faster than it was for any of the lifts prior. It was faster than the 185. It was faster than 187.5. And, so again, this is a significant uptrend in strength going into the meet. She super compensated perfectly. Going to the meet, her body she was cutting. It was literally downtrending. So this is perfect. She was in a head-to-head matchup with a different lifter, in which her jump here was plus 10 to 200. So before we get into this, we'll put 200 or 440 pounds. So yeah, so this is 440 pounds or 200 keys here. Just getting all hyped up from Max and Mar at the ranch, getting all sassy. She knows she needs this one to win the head-to-head matchup. Even then, it wasn't actually necessarily a guarantee because the flights were all weird. But then, from a coaching perspective, there's Gino going crazy. From a coaching perspective, I'm cross-referencing this with every prior top set of the block going into the meet. And I would go as far as to say that this rep was just as good, minus the grip slip, as the 187.5. So let's just take a look at this. Not fast, not slow, but then this was her 187.5 9 days prior. It's to me, it looks very, very similar. There's some differences. Maybe this is a little slower, but even if you say it's a little slower, we're talking she's approximately 12.5 kilos stronger than she was on week 3. as she is on meet day. She's 12.5 kilos stronger on meet day than she was on week 3, I'm trying to say. So, let's look at this data point here. Let's go over, this is the bread and butter of the presentation that I want to provide for you guys. Week 1 data point, 172.5 for 2 at 6.5. So strength is here. Let's just plot it on a little mini chart. Strength is here. Week 2, 185 or 407 for a single at 7. So we have a 12.5 kilo increase, 1 rep less at around the same RPE. That's a significant uptrend in strength. So strength is here, 1, 2. Week 3, 187.5. So only 2.5 kilos more than week 2 at the same RPE, and a grip slip fail. So, in terms of a line chart here, strength is here, week 1, 2, week 2, and now 3, it's sort of like this. It sort of goes sideways. It could be a little higher, it could be a little lower actually, right? So 1, 2, 3. Then, week 4, taper deload, so we're not even gonna plot that point. And then week 5 is the meet, it goes here, right? So, sorry, I don't know if I'm in the camera. So it goes 1, 2, 3, meet. Right, and so the big question I get a lot is how does that happen, or why does it happen? This is the reason why I wasn't timid at all with the 187.5 miss or hand rip, or whatever you want to call it, RP7 consolidation and trend, whatever you want to call it, right? The reason why I wasn't nervous at all with this is because to me, the big question going into this week 3 is, even though her fitness is increasing from 1 to 2, how much fatigue is she carrying? Because if she's carrying fatigue, even though she's increasing, when that fatigue dissipates, it'll pop even more. So when she goes up from 1 to 2, even though she's super compensating and got stronger, I personally even think that she was carrying fatigue. That when that fatigue goes down, it'll go up even more. So week 1 to 2 here, she's carrying some fatigue. This is a little fatigue barrier, right? Week 3 sort of goes like this. Fatigue is high now. Taper or volume reduction going into the meet causes this fatigue to come down and causes this fitness to spike going into the meet. So like I said before, the graph would be, sorry, I should have drawn a visual of this, but 1, 2, 3 meet. Now this will be that line, and this will, or 1, 2, 3 meet. Now this will be the fatigue. 1, 2, 3 meet. See how that works? So there's an inverse relationship with fatigue and fitness. And so when I was more of an amateur coach, this would have been very scary. Oh my gosh, you're feeling 187.5 going into the meet. Also, something I didn't point out, her meet PR is 190. So this is a 10 kilo meet PR and RP 8 or 9. So it's oh my gosh, you're feeling 187.5, 9 days out, we're in trouble, da 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 da. Given the fact that I knew that there was a fatigue burden, I knew we weren't in trouble at all. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know exactly what strength would be at. I just knew it would be high. So that's a great sort of topic. So, discussion topic here, analyze the stress associated with the lift based on the mechanics and why the volume. Again, the volume is regulated and limited here because this lift is highly stressful for her and it incurs a lot of fatigue. So, let's move on to the next one. I hope that was a good sort of, teaching lesson here where, we go from this 9 days out, we shoot to, this 9 days later. It's this is exactly what I wanted with the super compensation peak and a taper. I mean, this is what we do. This is what we do all the time, and it's taken years and years and years of coaching to really nail this for lifters. I mean, and honestly, she's putting in the work. She's doing it's Gino going crazy. But yeah, let's move right on to the next one here. Alrighty, this had the potential to be the most fun one to go over, but unfortunately, Rob only only captured his week 3 and week 4 top sets here. So week 1 and 2, we're just going to fill in, and I'm not going to be able to show you anything. There's a lot of notes for this lifter, though, so let's go over them. So his prior squat PR 2.5 months ago was 225 keys, or 496 pounds, coming out of retirement. So he took about a 2-year hiatus. Before that, though, he was a really good lifter for 3.5 years. He's deadlifting over 660 pounds. Squat is around the 240 range, so 520 to 530. Bench, very good for that deadlift correlation. So, excuse me. This is what I would call definition Eastern periodization here. we have 2.5 months to get as much efficient stress in as possible to lead to positive adaptations. So back to the original introduction slides here. If on any of these days, on any of these squat days, this is the schedule on the right. If on any of these squat days we go too hard, too overboard, in which he creates too much of a fatigue burden, he's not going to be able to maintain a progression with a large amount of volume. Again, when I say, this is a really controversial topic in my opinion. When I say get as much efficient stress in as possible, that's a lot different than get as much stress in as possible. Because if you get as much stress in as possible, regardless of its efficiency, a lot of times it leads to negative results. So the big thing to analyze with his biometrics here, biomechanics, is he's a tall lifter. He's 6'2". So, he's traveling a long distance here to do these reps. So just in nature, this movement is going to be really stressful for him. So the question here from a coaching perspective is how much intensity or load does this lifter need to incur an efficient stress? And I think a lot of you would be shocked here. So let's go over this again from top to bottom. The schedule here is this. Friday is a primer day. His primary squat day is on Monday, in which the competition day is on Sunday. We have a 5-week block length. So meet day is on week 5, day 1. Basically, this is just shifted back one day to Sunday. So this Monday primary is just shifted back one day to Sunday. That's the meet on week 5, day 1. On average, 28.5 reps a week. So how do you get 28.5 reps a week in while also recovering properly, leading to positive adaptations, et cetera, et cetera? Let's fill this out again. So again, the first 2 weeks he didn't record, so I can't show you the videos, but this is going to be the week 3. So this is going to be the one that a lot of you guys are really going to scratch your heads on probably. So the week 1 triple top set, and I'll go over that in a second. Week 1 triple top set, 365 pounds. It's about 165 keys. Whoop, wrong spot. Actual RP, 6. Boom. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of this 165. We're doing pounds for this whole one because he trained on pounds even though it looks like kilos. Those are calibrated pound plates. The reps per week on week 1 was 22. Did 22 reps per week from this secondary day and this primary day. Week 2, top set double, load, what do we got here? 395 pounds. RP, 6. Reps per week, 30. So we have a sizable increase in strength, sizable increase in stress, and sizable increase in just the performance or the load that he actually did. Big thing to note here that a lot of you guys might question, there's no top set singles going into the meet except 1 week out. Why? Again, we want to get as much stress in as much efficient stress in as possible. And one way to possibly do that is actually to not do a single, because look at it like, say you have a limited amount of gas on your top set. If you do a single, it could potentially, for him it did. It gassed him out for the following set. So why not use that extra gas to get more reps in the form of a top set? Obviously, we still want to keep it closer to a single because we want to handle certain loads, but this is, again, a sizable increase in stress, fitness, and load from week 1 to 2 here. Now, week 3, this video here is week 3. He did a 1x2. The load here is 415 pounds. And let's judge what the RP is. Whoop, gotta turn the volume off so I don't get copyrighted. It's 1. Also, depth questionable, right? 2. So 2, a little questionable depth, tall lifter. He rated that a 6.5. So I think that's a fair rating. I mean, we're judging off of, let's judge off of this rep what you guys think. I mean, I could see less than 6.5, but we'll put 6.5 because that's what he said. Average or total reps per week was 33. So again, here we go. Notable increase in stress, notable increase in strength, notable increase in load. So he's linearly progressing everything. And so, I'm going to go over this in other lifters here, but the way to do that is there's a breaking point. And this is what I was saying in the beginning of this lifter here. There's a breaking point in terms of stress where if you try to do something like this, where you're linearly just like increasing everything, if you hit a certain point, too early, you will not be able to progress it. Like, you will not be able to recover enough, or the stress will get too hard to do, or it just takes time to adapt, right? So that was 2 weeks out. So this was 3 weeks out here. This is 435 pounds. Again, on the calibrated pound plates. Let's watch. See what you guys rate it. First thing to note, depth is notably better. So depth is also, like, the point with this kind of lifter is you can see things develop over time. Like, the stress is increasing, the fitness is increasing, and the depth or the preparedness, right, is also increasing as the weeks go on. I mean, he rated this a 7. I don't know what you guys think. I could see he rated this a 7, which is fair. Again, it's going to look deceiving because he's a tall lifter, so he has to travel really far distance. So the velocity is going to be high. I'm taking his word for it here. Total reps per week were 28. So this is 1 week out from the meet. He's doing 28 reps a week. Notice, compared to Erica's deadlift there, in terms of a volume reduction, there's a slight volume reduction for sure, but we're talking little, right? It goes from 33 to 28. Obviously, intensity, reps per set, there's a lot of deviations there as well. But the point with the overarching point with this I want to make with a lot of lifters is there's some progressions or periodization models where, if you pull the stress too much too soon or too much at all, the lifter will actually detrain. Into the meat. I just had my bone broth. Getting bone broth burps. So with this lifter, he's linearly increasing in strength with the prescribed stress. So how much do you actually want to remove that stress? And also, how much fatigue is he carrying? Because if he's not carrying any fatigue, why would you even remove the stress in the first place, right? So again, final before we move on, this is what 435 was. This is the heaviest he's touched in 8 weeks leading into the meet, 435. Opener at the meet is 475, 215. Oops. So opener number 1, 215 or 475. And this is how it went for Mr. Rob there. The side judge gave me a really dirty look. Like, he was like upset that it was too easy. So, again, this is a massive super compensation. This opener at 475 pounds, in my opinion, was faster than the prior 2 weeks at 435 and 415. So this is a massive spike or super compensation in the meet on squat, created by very strategic stress. So what do we do from here? We jump 15 keys. When I say we, also something to keep in mind is Max and Mara of the Ranch Training Center were the handlers. I was Article 14. I had my whiteboard, but they had final say in everything. So this here is, This here is for attempt 2 is 230 keys or 507 pounds. So let us see how this went. Yep. I mean, it's a little slower, obviously, right? But that's a 15 kilo jump from 1 to 2. So now, just put this in perspective here. He does 507 on his second, in which the 8 weeks prior, the most he's touched in terms of load is 435 pounds. So he's now 70 pounds or about 35 keys above what he's ever even touched going into this meet. This is literally textbook Eastern periodization or a super compensation peak. From here, plus 10 kilo jump, 529, 530, 240 keys. Let us see how it goes. I was filming this. Yep. there's not a whole lot to say about that. Also repping the white LTS logo. It's crazy. And this is like what I've basically learned how to do over years of coaching. Again, the lifter's doing all the work, but just look at the right side of the screen, the graph here. These are his load progressions from week 1 to meet. You know, it's like he's opening with something 40 pounds heavier than he's even touched in training. So again, this is going to be the graph here, like I did with that last one with Erica. Week 1, fitness is here. I mean, it's high. Week 1 is here. Week 2 is probably here. Week 3, okay, I gotta go lower. 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 415, 4 here, 5 here. So again, then the question is, like I did with Erica, what's the fatigue burden? It's not so much. It's not as much. And that's why, again, these reps per week, they lowered slightly, but not by much. They're like, in terms of a stress reduction, he's literally relying on the overload scheme to super compensate. So if we remove the stress or we remove the overload scheme, he will detrain, right? So, you know, it's like the big question I have for a lot of like coaches, like not like aspiring coaches, people who like just talk with me about coaching. It's like, if your lifter has a 5-week block going into the meet and they're on week 4 and they're not fatigued, they're not beat up, they're not anything at all, and they're relying on the stress to keep progressing, why are you removing stress in the first place, right? And if so, how much are you removing at all? Because I know a lot of you probably understand the downtrend in strength after you do a 4-week block and it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, yay, good, right? Then week 1 comes around and then it goes like this, right? A lot of coaches here, you're doing that into the meet. Like, so it's like if meet is here, you go like, meet's here, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, then you remove the stress and then it goes like this into the meet. So you want to get that pop into the meet, you know? So this is just a really fun example. I wish I had the first 2 weeks here to showcase this, but I mean, like I'm saying, we're talking, he did 100 pounds more in the meet than he did in training. Obviously, though, the big caveat is, like, I'm not saying that he couldn't have done more in training. I'm saying he didn't, right? So he did 100 pounds more in the meet than he did in training. He could have done more in training, but again, if he does a certain amount in training, he's actually going to incur too much stress, or too much tax, rather, in the form of fatigue, in which he's not going to be able to continue this overload scheme. He's going to need to pull back. And if you pull back, you can't continue the overload scheme, and then it all sort of just dies. So really, really, really fun example. I love this example. I'll probably reference this to a lot of people. Let's move on to the next one here. Alrighty, so this is going to be Les. He took 3rd at Central and Midwest Regionals here. This is the notes. We're only going to look at squat again. So notes were PA Nats 2 months prior. So he did PA Open Nats 2 months prior. This is the schedule. The schedule in terms of the primary day, and the deadlift are the exact same as Rob's. Bench is a lot different. What he's doing on the this is what I would say without saying too much. What he's doing on that primer day on Friday is a lot different than what Rob was doing. Excuse me, that's for sure. Again, the big note here: given he's only had 2 months to train going into this meet, this is very, very similar to what we did with Rob. He needs to get as much efficient stress in as possible to ideally pop fitness as much as possible and ideally strength as well. But he does need a certain degree of preparedness because the weights that he's lifting are high. So he does need a certain degree of practice here. The block length was 4 weeks. Meet day is on week 4, day 1. So this day, he competed on Sunday, so this got moved back one. That was the meet day. On average, he's doing 30 reps a week. So, he's over 30 years old. He's like 6 feet tall or higher. I think he's like 6'1", to be honest. The amount of volume that he's doing is a lot. So let's go over this. This was week 1 here, and this was 512 pounds, or 232.5 kilos. So this was top triple on week 1. Now, what you'll notice here, and this is the good and the bad with him, is the reps look the same, like infinitely. They look like somewhere between easy and hard, but there's no speed drop almost ever. So he rated this in RP 6.5. The reps per week on the week were 30. you know, very, very typical. The next week here was a top double at 534 pounds or 242.5 kilos. So plus 10 kilo jump. That's exactly how it went. Again, notice that the reps to me, they look really similar. Like he's like a forklift, you know? It's a good thing because it like he's strong as all hell, but it's a bad thing for me from a coaching perspective because it's just so hard for me to judge like how much more he has or what RP it is, you know, right? So he rated this a 6.5. The reps on the week were 34. So, you know, same thing as Rob. He's like the stress is increasing, his fitness is increasing, the loads, everything's increasing, which is why these things are regulated. The actual RPs are regulated, the loads are regulated, the reps per set are regulated, etc. 1 week out from the meet, he has his top single. This is the only single he had for the block going into the meet. He had singles before this, obviously. This was 545. 545 pounds, 245 keys. I mean, it's good. It's good or great. Again, forklift. There's a little glitch in the video, but I mean, this is a great attempt. His meet PR, this was 245. His meet PR is 257.5. So 1 week out here, this is 12.5 under his meet PR. So it's not as big of a difference as what we saw with Rob, obviously. So, you know, 1 week later is meet day. Oh, sorry. He listed this RP as 7. The reps per week were 26. Very similar structure. The block length is 4 weeks. It was a quick block because he hyper adapts to things. So let's get right into the meet. So his opener here was 245. This is his opener. I mean, that was this is the exact same thing as he hit the week prior. And also, are my calculations wrong? I keep doing it in pounds, but maybe I'm wrong. 245 is 540. Yeah, I thought I was wrong. So his opener here, meet 1 is 540, 245. So, you know, again, reference points. I always talk about reference points. This is his opener. Beautiful. And this was the same exact load a week prior. So I personally think that's a slight increase in strength or fitness, one of the two, right? From there, it's say what is this? This is 562. So sorry, I have to do these. I didn't put the kilos down. I know some of you are kilo supremacists. I believe this is 255. So this is 2.5 kilos under his all-time PR. I mean, it's good. It's so good. It's so good. 2.5 keys under his PR. Again, the whole point of this presentation is like, this is what happens when you spike fitness. This is the whole goal. So he's basically hitting his PR in a second. 255 or 562. And then from there, he has room in the tank for more, and he has another attempt. So worst case scenario here is he misses this. So this is his third attempt here is 262.5, which is 578. I'm gonna do this first. So this is it. This is the progression. Last one was good. I mean, the man's moving it like a forklift on steroids now, you know? Like, like it's just he's just super common saying like a mofo, you know? I mean, it's a great rep. I mean, this is a 5 kilo PR here. Like, great rep. Again, he only had two. So that PR that I'm talking about here, that was 2 months prior. So he had 2 months to prepare for this, and like he nailed it. And again, this is a super compensation peak. Again, it's not. It doesn't look as drastic as the other ones, but the problem with these lifters that are, when you start getting in the sixes for squat, they take more time to develop the strength. So this is a super compensation peak for a 2 month period for a high load squatter. If we had more time, we'd be able to spike it even more. But overall, I mean, this is so very successful. Just a super excellent job. Let's move on to Michael here. Alrighty, so this is actually gonna be the last one. This is gonna be Michael. I didn't realize how long the video got here. I was yapping so much. But this is gonna be the last one. This one's like a really. This one was awesome. This was a big one to talk about. So this is Michael. He's a 90 kilo male, not female. He's chasing the Raw Nats junior qualifying total of 695 kilos. The big note here is there's no singles going into the meet. He's incredibly intensity sensitive. I'll go over what that means in a second. This is the schedule on the right: 5 bench, 1 deadlift, 2 squat, secondary squats primer day again. Block length 5 weeks, meet days on week 5, day 1, which is Sunday. On average, 32.5 reps a week. It's a great amount of reps. Michael has a relatively shorter femur. He's a tall lifter. He's like 5'11", 5'10", maybe 5'9". I don't know, Michael, you gotta correct me on that. But he's taller for the weight class. He's very lean, but he can handle a lot of squat stress. So, I mean, he's a very upright squatter, right? So he actually needs a lot of volume. So the big thing with this here, I've been working with Michael for probably about 2 years here. This is the biggest note probably of the whole presentation. Just something strange that you'll never be able to find out unless you just work with a person for a while. Every time Michael does a single at an intensity of approximately 7 or greater, he always downtrends the week after. It's literally been 100% of the time. So what I actually did prior to this block was another 5-week block, and it was almost identical to the block he did running into the meet. I just wanted to test it. And what I did actually was on week 4 here, so the week before the meet, I mean, it wasn't the actual meet, it was just a week 5. But the day before, the week before the final week, this was actually a single. And it was something at at 7. And what happened, which is what's happened every single time he's done this, maybe it was like 7.5, right? Is he downtrended into that week 5. It was a great experiment because it literally, in terms of a proof, like a geometrical proof, it just proved everything we've established up until this point. The thing that's tough about coaching is people's adaptation processes change. So I was just thinking man, maybe he can handle it now. Maybe he can, but he couldn't. He downtrended into that week 5, which was the block prior to the block leading to the meet. So the block leading into the meet, learned from the mistake, and did that. So we're doing top triple, top double meet. The exact reason for the downtrend, I describe it as intensity sensitive, but it has something to do with how the lift affects him. It could be total load as well. So when you look at these rep sets, this regulates load, right? If you do a top triple or double at 6 or 7 or 8, you can't do as much load as you can with the top single. So point is I have a lot of hypotheses for the reasons behind this, but for whatever reason, when he starts pushing a single at 7 to 8, the following week he downtrends. That's happened literally 100% of the time the past 2 years. So that is the only reason for these rep sets. It's not like the other lifters where Michael had a lot of time to prepare for this meet. He prepared very well. It's just literally he doesn't react well to top set singles at high intensities or high loads. So we literally avoid them going into the meet. So let's do what we've been doing here. This is the triple week 1 here. The load is 235, 519 pounds or 235. I'm gonna put kilos for this load, kilos and pounds, because I know there's some kilo supremacists and some pound supremacists. So we're gonna put that there. This is the top triple on week 1 here. He listed this RPE as, I mean, like I said before with the notes about how this person squats, very upright. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful squat. But overall, this is a lower stress squat. It's not like less where he like looks like a forklift more or less, right? Like he can blow it up. His hip isn't necessarily traveling a far distance. But anyway, he rated this RPE as 6.5, which I think is super fair. Reps on the week were 31 total reps. Going on to week 2, again, top triple. I'll tell you, the prescribed RPE was slightly higher. And this here, keep in mind, this is only now 523 or 237.5. So this is only a 2.5 kilo increase or 5 pound increase at the same reps per set. And then let's see how this went here. I mean, depth has always been a mild problem for him, but I think he's nailing it here, right? It's like, I think this is comp depth. It's not too high, not too low. So that last rep there, it slowed. It definitely slowed. He listed this as a 7 to 7.5. Total reps on the week, 36. Again, increase in stress and everything. Now, this is, from a coaching standpoint, this is a major concern. This is a linear downtrend from week 1 to 2, technically, in terms of strength. So strength on week 1 is here. Strength on week 2 is actually something like this, like here. Now, if there wasn't a lot of data supporting this play, I wouldn't be doing this at all to start, right? But, I mean, I have years of data on this. So at this point, I'm not concerned. However, if I didn't have any data on him and that was the results after 2 weeks, I would actually be concerned. So let's go right into week 3 here. Switches to a top set double. And the load here is 245. 245 or 540 pounds. So 540 pounds or 245. So we got a plus 7.5 increase at 1 less rep per set. See how it goes. He's at Baki Athletics. It's a good rep. I mean, depth is always a concern for us. I mean, that's good. If you look at, like, so here's the thing. If you look at that second rep compared to the last week's top set third rep, that second rep was way faster. He listed this as a 6.5 to 7. Total reps on the week, 34. Almost identical, slight downtrend. Again, there's a lot of deviations in reps per set and intensity with this progression here. But, again, this is like, to me, this was the major play of the whole block. If I didn't have the data to support the play, I would have audibled here. I would have made some sort of major deviation. Yeah, maybe he overshot it. Maybe it was his fault. But at the same time, even if he didn't overshoot it, because I'll tell you, the prescribed RP was less than this. It was like 6.5 to 7. Either way, even if he hit the RP, it's still a downtrend from week 1 to 2. So whenever you start downtrending, that's when you got to be cautious here, right? But he did have a major desensitization period before this week 1. So the stress on week 1 was hitting him harder. You know, the explanation here is that there was a fatigue burden. And it's something that I saw in the moment, and I didn't want to audible it, but I'm just saying, I see this happen a lot with coaches where, you know, week 1 is here, then week 2 either downtrends a little bit or uptrends a little bit, and then from there going into the meet, it just sort of goes like, you know? So this is why weekly programming is supreme. There's so many reasons why it's supreme to like 4-week or block league programming, but like this is a very good reason where it's like you need to catch that downtrend before it happens, audible, fix it, and realistically here there wasn't actually much to change. Coaching wise, I thought there was a greater than 90% chance that something like this would happen from week 2 to 3. So now the graph that I keep showing goes something like this: 1, let's go 1, 2, 3. Okay. So this is 2 weeks out. Now, week 4. This is 252.5, which is, whoops a daisy. This is 556, or 252.5. Again, keep in mind, last block on this day, again, what I did was I did an experimental block, very similar in length and structure, one block prior to this block. In the last block, this was a single, and it was something like 556 or 560. And then the following week, he failed 565. So, like, very harsh downtrend. Let's see how this goes, though, here. There's Jess Kinney in the background. Watch out. Depth is good. If you look at that first rep, you think it's a little slow, eh? And that's what, I mean, again, this is the benefit of working with someone for a while. Second rep a little high, but overall pretty good. He rated this as a 7.5, which I think is fair. The thing with him is, like I said before, he's not a forklift, so the speed isn't constant at all times. It does slow down, but you know, he's a unique lifter where he can make it pop really fast and he can grind. Usually it's one or the other with lifters. But you know, this is a perfect set prior to the meet, because one, he gets that exposure to heavy load or high intensity. That's generally it's something big for preparedness, right? So he's getting a degree of preparedness in, and he's continuing the overload scheme. So this is a potential uptrend in strength. Reps per week were 28. So linear downtrend in volume. So here's the graph that I keep going over. Week 1 is here. Week 2 is here. Week 3 is here. Week 4 is here. Week 5 is going to be the meet. So that's meet day. Keep in mind, the big thing too, I don't think I mentioned, is body weight linearly downtrending. I mean, that's huge for squat, right? Body weight was literally downtrending to make weight for the meet. So this was, let's just watch it one last time. This was his final top set going into the meet, which wasn't even a single. Again, just based off all the data I just explained here. When he does singles, he crashes. Like if he did a single here at something like 565 or 570 maybe, there's no doubt in my mind he'd crash into the meet. That's what's, again, it's happened literally 100% of the time. So here's meet week. This is attempt 1. Attempt 1 here, 245, which is 540 pounds, which is 245. So this is the same weight as he did on week 3. Depth is perfect, and there's that pop. Ooh, love that pop. Good lift, 3 white lights. Not much more to say about it. This was a very appropriate opener. So before I go into the next attempts, the reason for the opener, again, he's chasing the qualifying total. The game plan here, again, Max Amar, the rancher, handling him, but the game plan here was very specifically, he needs something between 260 and 265 if he wants to be on track to hit the qualifying total. You know, anything less, he's probably out. Anything more is great, but it might not be necessary. So the line in the sand that we're aiming for is 260 to 265. So from that, he jumps 10 to 255. Which is 562 pounds. Very appropriate jump. So from here, you know, depending on how this moves, you know, assuming he hits it, he can jump 5 to 260. He can jump 7.5 to 62.5. He can jump 10 to 265. You know, depending on how it moves, you know, give yourself an opportunity to land where you need to land to accomplish the goal that you want to do, right? That was basically the whole plan here. So here we go. Little hiccup at the bottom. Little valgus, little knee cave, right? But overall, a really good rep, in my opinion. The question is obviously, what do you do from here? It's tough. It's really, really, really tough. And you know what else made it tougher? He actually got 2 reds for this on depth. So, this is technically a miss. It's not technically a miss, it is a miss. He misses this on depth. And, you know, this is the caveat here. This is something that I haven't explained this whole video just yet. This is the example for it. This is the negative of trying to spike fitness as much as possible. So, you know, like I'm saying, he's doing 3s and 2s going into the meet, not singles, because when he does a single at a particular load or intensity, there's a downtrend. Now you could say, you know, maybe you could do a fatigue single, or maybe you could do a single at a lower load so he doesn't get that downtrend. You know, maybe that's something to experiment with. But again, the priority here was blasting fitness as high as possible so he has a chance at the qualifying total. Anyway, the point with that, the negative associated with that is going to be that preparedness is going to be sacrificed, right? Like, he hasn't done a single going into the meet. He did a single last block. He did 2 singles last block, actually. But because he hasn't done a single going into the meet, things like this are more likely to happen where you miss on depth. Like, strength here didn't, and it wasn't an issue. Maybe it was hard, maybe it was easy, but strength wasn't an issue. There's just a depth error. And he can sink it lower, but he didn't. So the lower preparedness probably actually led to this depth miss. But again, I would take fitness in this instance every time when we're talking about he needs to do a Hail Mary squat for that qualifying total. You know, you got to spike fitness as much as you can, in my opinion. So anyway, the question is, what do you do here? I put on the whiteboard in the audience, I said plus 7.5 to 262.5, or what is that? 578. I put 578 down. Then the red lights came on, and then I put plus 5. Max, the handler, challenged it, didn't go through, so he did jump from here to 260. So this is my audience POV. So 2 is a plus 5 kilo jump. I would have done plus 7.5 if it wasn't for missing on depth. Again, there's a degree of risk to reward here, because if he misses this squat, he leaves with 540 or 245. Also, his meet PR going into the meet was 247.5. So he's up 17.5 kilos on his PR if he hits this. Again, the whole basis for this decision is chasing the qualifying total. You know, like, if he hits 255, he's most likely out of the money. He needs more than 255. So 260 is the bottom threshold here that he needs to do. And let us see what happens here. Good walkout. He's always sassy with his walkouts. Yep. I don't know about you guys, but that looked like depth to me, and it was 3 white. This was 3 whites, not even a 2-to-1. Again, he definitely, I think it's a front angle, so it's hard to tell, right? But I think a plus 7.5 might have easily been there, but this is what he needs to stay in the money, and he nailed it. You know, this is like I love this, because this is what makes powerlifting athletic. It's like everything's on the line. If you miss this, you leave with your opener. Instead, he's at 260 plus 17.5 kilo meet PR, and he's in the money. Now, unfortunately, he went on to miss his last deadlift, and he didn't get the qualifying total. But he was in the money. Like, this was great. Going after squat, he went 3 for 3 on bench, and he had a chance, and that's all you can ask for, you know. Like when you're on the fringe, you want to put yourself in the best position here, and you know, he increases fitness a lot. He worked really, really hard. He had about a 5-month off season, but this is just fantastic. So yeah, this is plus 17.5 kilo meet PR, and yeah, no singles going into the meet at all. Again, that's my reasoning. I hope this video here is teaching you something and making you scratch your head a little bit, because what's really good about all of this is, like, we can debate it, and I ain't blocking nobody for disagreeing with me. You can disagree with me all you want. You know, I have receipts to show the success of what I do, and my lifters do as well. So, you know, the whole point of this video is I wanted to make you guys just, I wanted to provide some information to make you think about things, you know? And then ideally from there, maybe you can take some things from this video, implement it for yourself, and, you know, lead to better results. Or, you know, we could always have discussion in the comment section below. So, yeah, I'm going to end the video here, and I super appreciate all you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section. You know, like the video, subscribe, all that stuff if you want. If you ever are interested in joining LTS, you know, I'll leave information in the description there. But other than that here, that was, like I said, I had another one, Jack, right here. but this video is going on a little bit too long. So thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you in the next webinar or presentation.